What's up, Kendrick?
What's up? How's it going on this beautiful Sunday afternoon in Neverland?
Man, we were supposed to start at 5 o'clock, and I swear to you, every single time we get ready to go, something comes up. So my apologies to all of you who were expecting us to come on at 5. Instead, we came on at 5:30. But I can assure you, we're going to wrap this up by 7. Uh, but welcome all to another edition of HBCU Sports Live. I'm Kenn Rashad. He's Kendrick Marshall. And of course, the big news of the weekend right now is despite all of the pitfalls, struggles, challenges, and everything else associated with the spring football season, Alabama A&M is the spring football champion for 2021. They won that championship yesterday in a victory over Arkansas-Pine Bluff, 40-33. Pretty exciting game. I think it matched the hype, and I think pretty much we saw just about all you would expect to see out of a championship game, wouldn't you say, Kendrick?
Oh yeah, I mean it was billed as a high scoring affair going in, and it turned out to be that way. It literally came down to the last play of the game. Skylar Perry got intercepted in the end zone with just a few seconds left to secure the win for Alabama A&M. And it was a championship that was hard fought, and Alabama A&M certainly with the way they played this season, going undefeated and overcoming a lot of challenges with having to deal with schedule changes and cancellations and postponements and playing mostly like all road games except for maybe a couple, were able to overcome all that to go on the road again at a neutral site and win the championship. So much kudos to Connell Maynor's bunch and Alabama A&M.
Yeah, obviously the talk going into the game was obviously, we were talking about a Quill Glass versus Skylar Perry. Not a bad outing for either one. Akil Glass, 24 for 45, 271 yards. Had a slow first half, included in 3 touchdowns, one in INT. Longest was 54. Skylar Perry, pretty much the same. 3 touchdowns, three interceptions actually, and one touchdown. But the key for UAPB was obviously special teams and defense. But I mean, this game being what it was, being on a neutral site, what do you say to the fact that the game was played in Jackson as opposed to it being on a home site compared to what we've seen previously with Alcorn and Southern?
I didn't think it had much of a, if all, any impact on the way the game was played. You might have wanted to see a little bit more enthusiasm, I guess, with the game being in a home setting for either team, with the crowd and everything. But like as far as the way the game was played, I think both teams played it normally. Like you said before, like there was special teams plays on both sides. Pine Bluff had a kick return for a touchdown. Alabama A&M had a 2-point conversion on a blocked extra point. The game was going back and forth. In the middle of the game, there was a defensive struggle for a while. And so the game pretty much was like a normal football game, even though it was played on a neutral site in a different city. So I don't think it had that much of an impact on the outcome of the game at all.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think the attendance was 17,000?
Yeah, a little over 17,000 for that game, which is not bad considering all the factors that went into it with the game being moved a week ahead of schedule and not being very close to either campus. And so to have 17,000 people there was a pretty good turnout, especially in this environment we're in with traveling with COVID and
Right.
stadiums and full
Oh,
capacity.
wow.
So
Hold on, man.
that many people
They're, hold on. They're telling us
going to
no
the game
audio.
was pretty good.
They're saying there's no audio. How's that possible? Okay. Chuck is telling you no audio. So, Chuck, can you hear us now? Don't scare me like that. We had audio problems before. Okay. But no, 17,248 was the official attendance for that game. And, you know, I like you said, I think the game was actually well attended, all things considered. Um, the timing that was in play, the restrictions that were in play, uh, all things considered, the fans from UAPB, the fans from Alabama A&M. And I will say this: it was really a nice touch to be able to see the bands in the stands as well, and that kind of gave it a pretty unique component when you compare what we witnessed with games previously that didn't have bands or maybe just the home band. So I thought the presentation of it was pretty nice. Um, I think all things considered, it went well.
Yeah, it certainly did. I mean, the job of basically at the last minute changing their scheduling to get the game to move to Jackson, in a facility that they had hosted games before during the regular season. And so, it all worked out well as it did.
Right. So one of the interesting storylines that I thought was the comment made post game by Alabama A&M Connell Maynor during the post game press conference. Here's a snippet from that presser.
Thanks a lot. Congratulations, Coach Maynor. I wanted to ask you a question from the perspective of being an HBCU lifer, if you will. I mean, you've won championships in 3 of the 4 conferences as both a player and a coach. You've gotten to the doorstep of a national championship. And in an era right now where so many high-profile names are getting to the sidelines without having to work their way like you did, does that make this sweeter for you?
It does. It does. And also I played at Winston-Salem in the CIAA. Then I played in A&T in the MEAC. So you're right. I'm a lifetimer, HBCU, black college guy. And I got a lot of my buddies always saying, "Hey, we can't wait to see you on the NFL sidelines." And I always tell them, I don't want to be on the NFL sidelines. I'm where I want to be. I think God got me here, got a purpose for me being at HBCU. I come from a broken home. A lot of my players come from broken homes. A lot of players at HBCU, period, come from broken homes. And so, I always tell those guys, don't use that your dad wasn't there for an excuse for you to do something you're not supposed to do. Use that for motivation to motivate you not to be like him, not to leave your wife, not to leave your kids, and get it done. And we always talk about champions and deadbeat dads and losers. Champions and fathers and leaders, they find a way. You find a way to graduate. You find a way to make a play. You find a way to win a football game. You find a way to feed your family. Losers and deadbeat dads, they make excuses. Okay, it's always an excuse. Why you can't be there? Why you can't come to my game? Why you don't have no money? And this and that. That's what losers do. It's 1,000 reasons why you lost the game. So we're teaching these guys how to be men and fathers. And I think that's why I'm here in HBCU. So I'm glad to be here in HBCU. If a Power 5 came around, that'd be great. If it don't, I think I'm where I'm supposed to be.
So, say what you will about his antics before, during, and even after the game, as we saw with ESPN when he won the championship. But without question, the man takes his craft seriously. He takes the job seriously. And I thought that the question that Mark Gray asked was, I thought, appropriate, given everything that's transpired up to this point with respect to obviously the hiring at Jackson State and even at Tennessee State. Your thoughts about Connell Maynor's comments, Kendrick?
I think it dovetailed to something I asked him earlier in the week on Monday about how he was able to keep his team ready to go the entire season, despite so much uncertainty with their scheduling and them having, a lot of games being postponed because of COVID. And he pretty much mentioned how he told them that, hey, Lions are going to find a way to overcome challenges. They're not going to make any excuses. They're not going to rest on their laurels. They're always going to be ready. And so what Connell Maynor said in that clip right there is kind of emblematic of that. I mean, to have a season where they only played one home game and it had a bunch of other games postponed, and then a week before the regular season ends, they have another game that's postponed, and they still are able to go out and beat it. Even though they only won 4 games on the season going into the championship game, but to not play a season in the fall, have a 400+ day layoff, and then you lose your first home game because one team decided to opt out of the season, and then lose successive games during the regular season, and overcome all of that and still go out there and win a championship. It speaks to the coaching ability of Connell Maynor. And I mentioned earlier on our message board that any team that wins a championship in this environment, in this COVID-19 environment, is the most legit championship team there is. It's difficult because you don't know from week to week if you're going to play or not. I remember speaking with Dawson Odoms. He mentioned how he was scared every day, wondering whether or not one of his players was going to wake up sick, wondering whether or not there was going to be a positive COVID-19 test that would have them not be able to play. And we saw, like, throughout the season, so many programs in the conference unable to play because of COVID. And for Alabama A&M and Arkansas-Pine Bluff too, to be able to navigate this season and make it to the championship game, it speaks to them and the discipline and the coaches that they have on both sides.
R.B. Parker made a pretty interesting point that I think people maybe overlook, and that A&M played no home games during this stretch. Everything was on the road, or in this case, the SWAC championship game was a neutral site game. And I recall that question being asked on the message board, and I think it was just a question, regardless of who it was. People may have taken it the wrong way, thinking that maybe some way, somehow, he was trying to rain on the parade of the A&M team, and I don't think that was necessarily the case. I think it was just simply a question that he wanted to know was this win, is this win something that should be that should include an asterisk? No, it shouldn't. The players did what they had to do. The coaches did what they had to do. And when you put in consideration how A&M, what they had to go through initially, what I'm trying to figure out, they played, one game? They played, and then they went something like, 3 or 4 weeks without? I mean, it was like one game, 1 week after the other. Valley, well, we got to postpone this game. Then Grambling game is canceled. And it seemed like every single game, they were anticipating it was all, either canceled or postponed due to COVID. You can't hold them responsible for that. So I just think it was just kudos to A&M. I mean, that's all you can say. When you put in consideration those coaches literally had to get those kids, into practice, not knowing whether or not they were going to play, and then have to start off another week once they found out, well, we were supposed to play Saturday, and now we're not going to be able to play until next Saturday, and then the next Saturday comes and we can't play again. I would go so far as to say that might even take somewhat of a mental toll on not only on the coaches, but the kids or the players. So for them to be able to be prepared and to put themselves in a position to win a championship, I think it speaks a lot. With respect to Mark Gray's question, with respect to coaching hires, there was a coaching hire earlier this week in which Southern announced a new head coach. Safeties coach, Jaguar assistant Jason Rollins, who has been named the interim head coach for next year at least over the Southern program. Your thoughts about that?
Judging by our reactions to it on Twitter, a lot of the Southern players are very happy with this move. I mean, they were very pleased with it. They really, even though Rollins only been there a short while, he really endeared himself, it seems like, to the team. And so to have a response like that lets you know that that's the guy that the players wanted. I mean, it may not have been the guy the alumni wanted or some of the fans wanted, but that's the guy the players wanted. And I think it's important when you have a situation like that to try to hold on to much continuity as possible in your program. And it seems like Rollins, with his resume of being an assistant coach, other places within the FBS especially, kind of helps with that. He kind of embraced being in the Southern Jaguar community and being a part of that program. So I think if he's the guy moving forward long, I think Southern already has a team that's in place to win something the fall and beyond. And just to have that continuity there is going to only help them achieve whatever they want to achieve down the road.
I know a lot of people were kind of up in arms over the fact that Roman Banks hired Rollins as he put the interim tag on him. But I think after listening to the explanation, and if I understood him correctly, listening to the press conference, I think given where we are right now at this time of year, with respect to the typical time frame that you would hire a coach, which would typically in a normal season, you kind of go through that period where coaches are fired. That's typically in December, and December, January time frame, and coaches are fired and they're hired and so forth. Given where we are right now at the start of May, with the fall season, prepared to begin in late August, early September, it makes complete sense for him to say, you know what, we're going to go ahead and make this an interim hire, obviously, and let him coach out the entire season. And basically, the impression that I got was when you put in consideration what the response was from Southern fans, given to the logic that was put into place, and when you put in consideration that there were a number of coaches who appeared to be interested in the position, they went through the process of, Marshall Falk and a number of other coaches who actually interviewed for the position. They went through a thorough search, but I think to make sure that with respect to continuity, with respect to what the players, the input that the players obviously provided in the search, the fact that Rollins stayed on point, I think to put him in as an interim, I think says a lot to the fact that I think they were very thorough, but I think it makes sense in that as it stands right now, the job is his to lose, depending on how the season goes in the fall. So I agree. I think it's a pretty solid hire. Hey, we are taking calls, 972-643-8796. Feel free to give us a call. Other news from the week, son of Shaquille O'Neal's son made the decision to commit to Texas Southern. Was it Shaquille O'Neal? He made the decision earlier this week to commit to Texas Southern. Indicated that he wanted to wanted to change the narrative of the culture and to do something different. That was a quote from him. 6'7" recruit I've met at McDonough, Georgia, McNoah, and Texas Southern's got a pretty good get. Let's see here. Comments. My man Chuck, let me see. A&M defeated South Carolina State the first game of the season, which they were off with weeks. Yeah, it says a lot to keep their team together, not knowing if they were going to play any more games. That's true. Let me see here. And Chuck again. I know Jason Rollins from when I attended McNeese in the 1990s, which he played there and he coached there. I've not seen him since 1998. Well, look, I don't know a whole lot about Jason Rollins, but again, based upon the response that many, in monitoring the a lot of the Southern folks, they were pretty pleased with that hire. Let's see. If for whatever reason you missed it, I had an opportunity to interview Tennessee State Athletic Director, Dr. Mickey Allen. And while he had a lot of interesting points to make with respect to the hire of Eddie George as the new football coach, he talked about the buzz surrounding that hire and fundraising and so forth. If you haven't had a chance to look at that interview, it is on online at HBCU Sports as well as our YouTube channel. Oh, by the way, please subscribe. But there was one very interesting part about that interview that I wanted to focus, and here it is. Where does the program stand right now with respect to, staying in the Ohio Valley as opposed to maybe looking at other options in the future?
Yeah, well, we've definitely been open to hearing other conferences. There's been a couple of conferences that approach us. I know the the Big South and the ASUN. We've been approached by them, but right now we're steadfast in just making sure that we enhance the profile of our program. From facilities to leadership to competitive, bringing that culture and that competitive environment to our campus. So once those calls come into us, we're taking them. We've heard from various ones. I mean, when I got here, the first thing was presented to me, hey, Doc, are we going? Can we go to the SWAC? And so that's a conference I have not got a call from, but there's a lot of proud HBCUs there, and I've called a lot of those ADs and those at those institutions, so we definitely want to play them in classics or home and home matchups. So I definitely want to make sure that we always honor our HBCU heritage. That's extremely important to me. There's a great AD there at Alabama State. She's great. We played Grambling here upcoming in the Black Pro Football Hall of Fame. So that's a great matchup. And President Glover and I are committed to that. But right now, we're just looking at, being the best OVC member institution that we can be. And, I've communicated that to our coaches. I've communicated to our young people. I think that we have to have a forward view and just say, hey, we control the controllables. We're in the OVC and we want the best OVC member institution we could possibly be.
Translation, I don't think we're coming to the SWAC. I think they're fine the way they are. Your thoughts on that, Kendrick?
Yeah, just talking to some people close to Tennessee State's program. Like, one of the reasons why they hired Eddie George to begin with was to enhance their ability to get corporate sponsorship, to draw more financial resources from their donor base. Because they were losing these recruiting battles and these other types of battles for resources from Tennessee schools in their region. And so Tennessee State wants to be the best in their region first. And I don't think the SWAC or the MEAC, with all due respect to them, it's kind of like their barometer of success. They want to first, I guess, conquer the Ohio Valley Conference before they think about moving anywhere else. But like Mickey Allen said, I don't think they are in a position right now to want to go anywhere else besides the Ohio Valley Conference now. You heard the ASUN and then the Big South. The Big South already has Hampton. They were able to get North Carolina A&T to come over there. And so I don't think that kind of fits the profile the state wants to do.
Yeah. I talked about this before. While obviously the overall mission of HBCUs ultimately is to educate the young minds of our black youth, the method that they use obviously is going to vary from institution to institution, which means in essence the mission is going to be different from institution to institution. And in the case of Tennessee State, the mission is clearly different, and they're simply doing what they feel is in the best interest for them. People kind of frowned at the fact of North Carolina A&T and Hampton moving from the MEAC to the Big South. You can say whether or not that was a good decision, but basically they did what they felt that they had to do, and they felt what they did was in the best interest of their particular program. Tennessee State is no different. And if for whatever reason it gets to the point to where Tennessee State gets in a position to where they can win the Ohio Valley Conference championship and potentially represent the conference in the NCAA tournament, the football playoffs, without question, I'm going to be right there rooting for them. I'm going to pull for them, plain and simple. The SWAC member schools are doing what they have to do. And just sometimes, man, the mission just simply isn't going to be the same for everyone involved. So I just think that's just something we need to put in consideration. Let's see here. Jeff DePlessis, I don't think the Tennessee Legislature Department of Higher Education will allow TSU to go to the SWAC. I used to hear rumblings about that years ago. I don't know how actually true that is, but that has been argued. That is a point that I've heard before. I just don't know how valid it is. Johnny Vaughn, JSU versus TSU games should be home and home. It's cool going to Memphis for the game, but after 10 years, they should really look at playing some games in Jackson. Johnny Vaughn, I understand your point, and makes perfect sense on paper, but here's the problem that you might be looking at if you decide you want to play a game like that home and home, Tennessee State and Jackson State. Right now, you've got the benefit, with the exception of last year, the game was canceled. But right now, both teams have the benefit of getting paid for that game every year. If you make that a home and home, that means 1 year Tennessee State is going to get paid for having it at their home game. Jackson State is not going to get paid. They're just going to have to pay for the expenses to get to Nashville. And then Jackson State is going to get paid the next year, and Tennessee State's not going to get paid, but they've got to have the expenses to get down to Jackson to play that game. So, it's going to be, we'll make money this year, lose money the next, and we'll make it up somewhere down the line. Whereas this particular setup is a win-win for both institutions. They get paid every year for that same game. Travel expenses are pretty much, in line, but that's the reason why this game is what it is, why it's been played as frequently as it has been, and it's been well attended, which is obviously the key for any particular conference game. The same applies with this. The same applies with the Magic City Classic. The same applies with the State Fair Classic. Let me see. Dang it. We had a caller call back. Sorry about that. Couldn't get to you. Let's see. Michael Knox. Were you surprised that no HBCU players are drafted by the NFL? Great question, Kendrick. Let me give you the opportunity to answer that. Were you surprised that no HBCU players are drafted by the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, as we all know, not very many players get drafted the NFL by HBCU, from HBCUs, but there were several players who were draft eligible. Offensive lineman from Grambling, David Moore, was a player who performed well at the Senior Bowl, actually. Brian Mills, another player from North Carolina Central, also a Senior Bowl invite, impressed a lot of scouts from what I was read. You had Mac McCain from North Carolina A&T. You had Calvin Ashley from Florida A&M. All these players I'm talking about, they eventually did sign undrafted free agent contracts. But yeah, it was kind of surprising that none of these guys, especially the first one I mentioned, Moore and Mills, got drafted, considering how well they performed,
right? Yeah,
season events and things of that nature. So it speaks to several things. First, there was limited exposure for these players. Grambling only played 3 games this year, and North Carolina Central didn't play at all, and A&T didn't play at all either. So a lot of scouts have a lot of tape on them. COVID-19 had a lot to do with that. And the pool of players this year was over 430 players who were draft eligible this year. We got 200-some slots. So
I thought it was more than that, but yeah, you said it was how many?
Yeah. It was like over 430 players who were draft eligible this year.
Yeah.
For only a little bit more than 200 draft slots over 7 rounds. Yeah. Kind of reduced their chances to get drafted. And then you factor in like a lot of early entries into the draft, and players who didn't play in 2020 at all end up getting drafted.
Right.
And so that was a surprise too. So a lot of those factors kind of played a role in it, as well as HBCU Combine that was touted as trying to give more players exposure. Didn't help as many thought it would. And then the regional combines that normally take place outside of the NFL Combine, which didn't happen, also was truncated too. So a lot of these factors that would normally get HBCU exposure in front of scouts and in front of team personnel members were not on the board this year, and it was reflected in how the draft turned out.
Yeah. Let me see. I think we got a caller, Kendrick. Hold on. Caller, are you there?
Oh, yes, I'm here. This is Chuck Hunt calling from Monroe, Louisiana.
Chuck, how you doing, sir? Thank you for your patience.
How you doing, brother? Yeah. Oh, no problem. These things happen. How's it going, Brother Rashad and Brother Marshall? I want to acknowledge you as well. You all do a great job with the show. The reason why I was calling, you were talking about Jason Rollins being the new head football coach at Southern.
Yeah.
I know Jason. One of the nicest guys you want to meet, and a hard worker too. He really worked his way to the top. I think about when we were at McNeese, he played there, and then he was a grad assistant there in the late 90s. I remember that 97 season. McNeese went to the national championship. They lost by 1 point to Youngstown State, and Youngstown State was coached by Jim Tressel. And that was had some great teams during that time, great defense. They were one of the top in the country. And I saw him and a guy named Adam Henry. He was the other grad assistant. He's now an assistant with the Dallas Cowboys. He's been all around LSU and all the different NFL teams. Oh yes, and those guys. Ain't what happened. I think give him a chance because he's been working hard to try to become a head coach. And like I say, they stopped at Tulane, the University of Texas, San Antonio. He was defense coordinator at those places, and he was defense coordinator at McNeese. They went to the second national championship. They lost to West Kentucky in that game. And but then he's really worked his way up to the top. And like I said, I know they're going after these we say celebrities, but think about this is a guy who's been going through the grind, like you talk about Coach Connell Maynor, what him and others have done. They worked their way to where they are.
So Chuck, let me ask you this: given all that you know,
sure.
I take it you've probably been following the search and the names of individuals who've been dropped as candidates. Marshall Falk. There was talk about Connell Maynor. I was even told that Eric Dooley interviewed for the position as well at Prairie View. Do you take issue or do you take exception with the fact that Southern hired Rollins as an interim instead of actually just naming him a permanent head coach? Do you take issue with that?
No, I'm glad. Like I tell you, brother Rashad and brother Marshall, I'm glad he got a chance. They took a chance on him because the thing about it, you have to think about he knows the players and the players know him as well. They know each other, and the thing about it, you have to think about that when you start bringing another coach in there, they have to learn this coach's with this coach's philosophy and all type things and what happened, you don't need to end up having players transferring and all, and what happened, those players are going to look, they see him there, they're going to say, hey, let's not no need to transfer. Coach Rollins is going to be our coach,
right?
And that's keep things together down there. He has Lionel Washington is down there as defense coordinator. Those guys work together. I think they work together at Tulane as well. I know Lionel Washington played at Tulane.
Right. So yeah, but good to know you guys are excited, and we'll at least Southern's excited, and we'll see how this all turns out. But Chuck, as always, brother, I appreciate your call, man. Thank you so much for.
You too. Take care.
All right. Thank you. So Kendrick, it appears that there's some excitement on that in that regard. Let me see. We got some more. See my man here. Kermit Dow, what's up, Fred? In my honest opinion, the SWAC is moving from chasing Tennessee State. They will need to. You know what? I agree with that, Kermit. Going back as far as I recall, I had a pretty good rapport with Rudy Washington when he was the former commissioner of the SWAC, and this is what, early 90s. And I remember the conversation. I remember having a conversation with him, and that at one point Tennessee State was offered membership into the SWAC. And because of how things were at the time, and Jeff Duplessis mentioned something about the state legislature, there were some kind of particulars about that. But Rudy Washington invited Tennessee State specifically as a football member. He said we didn't care about anything else. He didn't care about all the other sports. He gave them membership as a football-only conference, as a football-only member. And for whatever reason, I don't know if it was politics or what, but they didn't accept the offer. And, as far as any actual, or serious considerations of Tennessee State becoming a member of the SWAC, I think has just been nothing but just talk and speculation. Let's see here. Sissy McCurry, that's fake rumor that's been validated, but okay, I don't know. I'm guessing you're probably replying to somebody else. Let's see. Corey, I wish SU played TSU in Memphis. Are you talking about Southern Heritage Classic, or are you just talking about just a normal classic game? I mean, hell, play him in Memphis. Hell, play him for home and home. I'm actually looking forward. Grambling is playing them first game of the year. The NFL is at the Hall of Fame Classic up in Canton, Ohio. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if they want to make 2 trips to Memphis unless it's worth their while to play. But in talking to Dr. Allen and Mickey Allen, he made it clear that while they may not necessarily find themselves being a member of the SWAC, and I thought he was really honest in saying this, is that they still recognize themselves as an HBCU, and they want to make sure that they affiliate themselves. They are not moving themselves away from the opportunities to play HBCUs. They are showing this in their scheduling. They obviously play Jackson State every year. They play, Grambling this year as well. So I thought it was a fair statement that while they may not necessarily have plans to become a member of the SWAC or the MEAC, they are wholeheartedly all for playing, HBCUs in non-conference games. He alluded to the athletic director at Alabama State, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if we might see a scheduled game in the near future, some sort of a home and home, something along those lines. Let's see. Thomas Maddox, how can the state legislature make decisions athletically for a university? Thomas, I don't know. I don't know all the particulars. All I know is, but I will say this, I don't know if they can necessarily make decisions athletics, but I do know that politics can play a role in how these teams, are affiliated. I'm reminded of what was that? When the Big 12, when it was the Big 8, there were, a number of schools that became members of the Big 12. It was Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, and Texas A&M before they left. And everybody was talking about Baylor. Well, Governor Ann Richards at the time is a Baylor graduate. And my understanding is that none of that stuff was going to happen with Texas A&M or Texas becoming members of the Big 12 or whatever the whoever was or wasn't a member at the time. All I know is that Ann Richards made it pretty clear that if this is going to happen, Baylor needs to be included, and it happened. So, I don't know what the particulars are with respect to whether or not the legislature makes decisions for athletics, but I'm pretty certain that politics plays a role when these type of decisions are made. Make no mistake about that. I'm fairly certain of that. Let's see, Rhonda, who is going to win the SWAC championship next year? Rhonda, we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. Kendrick and I actually we're going to have a little fun with that, and we'll address that issue in just a few minutes. Let's see. Let's see here. The SWAC doesn't need Tennessee State to join, and I love our commissioner's approach for not recruiting schools. Okay. Let's see here.
I mean, he just got FAMU and Bethune-Cookman, so
yeah, right. I mean, look, man, it is bold, and look, I can't wait to how this is. You know what? We might as well go ahead and address that issue right now. So now, the spring football season is officially over. Alabama A&M is the 2021 spring football champions. They've earned it despite all of the ups and downs they had to endure. But Kendrick and I had a conversation earlier today, and I thought it was, it was just something I was just thinking about as a subject to discuss for the show. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought I'm pretty excited about the fall coming up and all of the dynamics that are in play. The SWAC, currently a 10-team conference, is going to be 12 with the addition of Florida A&M and Bethune-Cookman. Alcorn State is leaving the East, and they're going to become a member of the West. And I am interested, and you guys feel free. I asked Kendrick to provide me with a very, very early, predicted order of finish based upon what we know right now. Now, granted, there's a lot that's going to happen between now and September. But he provided me with his list of how he thought the teams in the East and the teams in the West would finish, and I provided mine. And let's just see what that list looks like. Kendrick has Florida A&M winning the East, Alcorn State winning the West. I've got Alabama A&M winning the East. And look, I'm going to just tell you now, like I said, this is just for entertainment purposes. I am simply giving Alabama A&M and Arkansas-Pine Bluff, their just due for winning the damn divisions. Just a courtesy. But Kendrick, I would love to hear your rationale for the decisions that you made.
Okay, let's start with the West first.
All right.
It hasn't been dethroned as champions yet. Despite them opting out of the spring season, I mean, in order to beat the man, according to Connell Maynor, aka Ric Flair. But yeah, Alcorn State is defending East champions, and so I don't see any team in the West, save for Southern and Arkansas-Pine Bluff, who could challenge them in the fall. And plus, you got to also think about this as a factor with both of my predictions for East and the West. The teams I have winning these divisions didn't play in the spring, which means they're less beat up, they have less injuries, they're going to have to practice more. And so in late September and October, November, when the games get more important, you feel like a team like Florida A&M, who was really good in the MEAC, in their last year in the MEAC, and a team like Alcorn State, who, as I mentioned before, multiple times SWAC East champions and SWAC champions, they're going to be fresher than some of the schools they're playing against in the fall. And so that could be the difference in why either school wins the divisions. I mean, I got JSU too, because I think.
Yeah, I was about to say. So you got Jackson State over A&M.
Yeah, but it's not about much. I think JSU is going to be a better football team in fall than the spring. But I think the only thing that's going to happen is that they're still trying to formulate their roster. They're going to have a new quarterback in there. Shadur Sanders is probably going to be that guy most likely. And they're going to rework their roster a little bit. And their coaching staff is still trying to implement their things that they brought over from the spring into the program. So I think Jackson State is probably a year away from winning the East and dominating the SWAC like everybody thinks they're going to do. As far as the West goes, I think Southern is close to Alcorn State. They have the continuity with the team is coming back and with Rollins being their head coach now. That helps. I think Arkansas-Pine Bluff is on the come up. They got a really great foundational piece. And Skylar Perry is their quarterback. Their head coach has galvanized their program, made them believe that they can compete and win. They won the West this past spring and were one player away from winning the whole SWAC championship this season. So they're right in the mix. So and I can't forget Alabama A&M. They're going to be contenders too in the East. They just won the SWAC championship. But I mean, the difference between these teams in the East and the West isn't that great. But I just think like Alcorn State and Florida A&M now having to play in the spring and being a fresher team, having more time together is probably going to make the difference in the outcomes of those two sides.
I'm interested, for those of you who are watching, feel free to post your, I see some of you have made predictions on who you think might win it. And if you want to just make your prediction as to who you think might participate in the SWAC championship game in the fall, if you're bold enough to provide a predicted order of finish for each division, by all means, feel free to post it and we'll put it on here for people to see. But I honestly believe, and I really do believe the East is going to be a three-way battle between A&M, FAMU, and Jackson State. I really do believe that, in essence, that's a toss-up. Bethune-Cookman, there really isn't anything that indicates that they're just going to be able to just kind of like just right the ship. Alabama State, while they did show signs of promise earlier in wins over Jackson State and so forth, I don't know, it just seems like something about Alabama State. It just, when it really comes time for Alabama State to show up, they for whatever reason, they just lose steam, and whatever momentum they would have going into a particular situation, they just, for whatever reason, can't maintain it. Arkansas-Pine Bluff, I just think Doc Gamble is just a phenomenal coach, plain and simple. And I think he doesn't get enough credit. You know, he doesn't get enough credit for his team's ability to play defense the way they do, and the way they've exhibited so far in the spring season. But they've gradually improved since he's been there, and that time that he's been there also extends to the when he was there as an assistant. You know, so Alcorn State, I'm right there with you with respect to the fact that they are going through a typical spring season right now, and that they're going to be fresher going into the fall. They don't necessarily have to worry about any nagging injuries, and I think that's going to be the key. You know, what's the injury situation with a lot of these players who are going to be who these coaches are going to depend on going into the fall. You know, I think Southern lost a few players kind of towards the end of the season. You know, I don't know if those players were going to be key and if they're going to be returning back in the fall and so forth. But, Arkansas-Pine Bluff, Alcorn State, ultimately I think is a toss-up. Like I said, I'm just giving UAPB their due for the simple fact that I think they're the champions. You give them what they got to do. Southern and Grambling, Southern's going to be formidable. And, but Southern can't beat Alcorn State for whatever reason. That's kind of been one of those things. Grambling, look, I'm telling you, that was a homer pick. I just simply could not put myself to put them down in that 5 or 6 spot. Plain and simple. Okay? It's a homer pick. All right? And if the one thing you do know about my Grambling Tigers is that when they are down, they are not down for long. All right? So we may suck a year or two, but given everything that we're experiencing right now, given everything that's on the line for Broderick Fobbs and all of the changes that are happening, that's taking place right now, and I'm hearing some very positive things, by the way, Kendrick, Marshall, I just want you to know. Grambling can't afford another loss of Prairie View either. That's the other thing. And I think, unfortunately, Texas Southern is Texas Southern. So I think that's going to be the case with them. So, like I said, it's very, very early, and I wanted to make sure we put out there very, very early. But I just find it, man, it is going to be so many. The storylines for each individual school is going to be so unique, and that isn't taking anything away from the MEAC. I guess at some point we'll get to that too. I know they're kind of going through their struggles right now in terms of just trying to make sure that they can stay an FCS member, and hopefully Delaware State won't be making any moves anytime soon. But that's kind of where we are. So, any other thoughts about the season? I will say this though. Let me say this much about the Florida schools. Do we? You know what? I'm gonna wait on that. I'm not. There's a part of me that wonders, are we just simply respecting Florida schools simply because they're from Florida? Has FAMU really provided anything that gives us any reason to believe that they're going to be a foe to be, I don't know. There's a part of me that just simply thinks that they're coming from a weaker conference, and that FAMU's dominance was based entirely up to the fact that the teams just simply weren't as strong. Now that remains to be seen.
Here's the thing though, Ken. Here's the thing though, Willie Simmons, their coach, has SWAC ties.
Right. I get that. Right. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I wouldn't call the MEAC in the state is weak. We all can agree on that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Right. It is weak. Right.
When the MEAC was actually a conference, it was handed to the SWAC in the SWAC MEAC Challenge, in the Celebration Bowl.
Now, right. And I was just about to bring that up.
Yeah,
exactly.
In the Celebration Bowl, so the MEAC has kind of dominated the SWAC for the last decade, in these head-to-head matchups. So I know North Carolina A&T before they moved to the Big South was the dominant team there, but overall the depth of that league, but before it became what it is today, was than in the SWAC. And so I don't think we just need schools by them being from Florida. I think we're just need schools, at least from my point. They came from a league that's been successful over the last 10, 12 years. And so you got to give them their credit. But I think this coming fall is going to be probably the most competitive season the SWAC has ever had. You have legitimately 8 teams who could win the SWAC championship next year.
Wow.
And
yeah.
The legitimate 8 teams who can win the SWAC championship, and you couldn't argue against either one of the 8 teams who could
win the championship. Great point.
Yeah.
Kuru, he's got Alabama A&M in the East and Southern in the West. He's got Bethune-Cookman second, FAMU third, Jackson State and Alabama State tied. Is that supposed to be a tie for 4? Okay, and Valley fifth. West, Southern, UAPB, Alcorn, Prairie View, Grambling, and TSU. I can see that. But come on, Kuru. That's a homer, though, right? But UAPB, Alcorn. Look, if you're going to put those 3, Southern, UAPB, and Alcorn, 1, 2, and 3, in any particular, one, you can interchange those spots. I can really see that happening. I can completely see that. Let's see. More comments. Let's see. Dwight Moore. You all have JSU ahead of someone else other than MBSU, Mississippi Valley, and WOW, and you see PV falling behind GSU. Interesting. Your comments on Grambling or Grambling over PV, Kendrick.
And while Grambling had a disastrous spring season, and there's a lot of influx with their program, I think Broderick Fobbs is kind of the right coach to get them on the rebound. After that down 2013 season where Grambling only won 1 game, and then the following season had them competitive, had them nearly winning the Bayou Classic and winning the Western Division, and they've won the SWAC West since then and won the Celebration Bowl since then. So I think he's the guy to help Grambling to come back over Prairie View, which doesn't have the reputation of having a down season and then rebounding from it. So that's kind of why I had Grambling ahead of Prairie View in that regard.
Right. Okay. So Chris Lucas, FAMU was defeated North Carolina A&T, South Carolina State, and Southern in 2019. Okay. Got it. I'm aware of that. Here's another one. FAMU beat A&T the last 2 times they played. I get that, but FAMU hadn't. Well, okay, they were ineligible last year, right? But they can't beat Bethune-Cookman. What am I missing? You FAMU folks conveniently left that one out, right? So I'm just saying. Let's see. Tori, I have Bethune-Cookman versus SU. Okay. I'll admit, I don't know a whole lot about Bethune-Cookman right now, so maybe you guys know something I don't. Let's see here. Let me see. Dwight, what you got? Let me see what Dwight got. Dwight Moore's got FAMU winning the East, Southern winning the West. No surprise. Let me see. A&M second, Bethune-Cookman, Bama State. You got JSU in 4th place, Dwight.
Yeah,
really?
That's
really.
Yeah, that's
come on, Dwight. I know. Look now. Okay, Southern winning the West. Okay, Alcorn second, UAPB, PV, GSU, and Texas. Okay. I don't know what to say about you, Dwight. You're my man and all, but Jackson State is not finishing 4th in the West in the East. That's just not going to happen. I don't see that happening at all. But I got you. I got you. All right, let me see here. Thomas, what are you saying here? I love how people. Let me see. Put this up here. I love how people forget how successful JSU has been in the SWAC traditionally. Okay. No one's forgotten that, Thomas, traditionally speaking.
Yeah, the last 8 years have been rough, at least.
You know, exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, you know, right. Okay.
yeah, before this year, the last time JSU beat Grambling was when Grambling decided not to show up to the game. That was basically it. So that's how far.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't mean to sideswipe the school team, but at the same time, I got.
Let's see. Chris Lucas, he's saying, let's see. I'm saying that FAMU has had quality wins and that the MEAC at the time wasn't a weak conference. Okay. Duly noted, point taken. But I just think the dynamics are going to be different. And I know you're not saying that FAMU is just going to run Rashad. Nobody's saying that. I just think that the storylines, like Kendrick said, you can literally say that there are going to be 8 teams that can make a legitimate case to win this. And in the entire time that I've been covering the SWAC, I don't ever recall being this excited about an upcoming football season. It is truly going to be, I think, an epic situation. Let's see here. Let's see, Tori. JSU plays FAMU, Bethune-Cookman, SU, Alcorn, and A&M. Those aren't easy games. That is true. But whenever any of those teams play against Jackson State, I think it's safe to say that that's not going to be an easy game either. No, that's. I mean, you have to put these things together. There is nothing that we saw from Jackson State this past spring. When you put in consideration how they were previously, there is nothing that says that we've seen firsthand they've improved. But there's nothing to indicate that they are going to be some sort of a slouch when the fall starts. That's just what it is.
They're gonna have all their guys who didn't play in the spring, play in the fall, which is gonna make them a better team in that regard. Deion Sanders is gonna have an off season to evaluate his program, implement some things, show some things he did, and so JSU is gonna be a much better, more refined football team in the fall than they were in the spring for sure.
Right. Let's see here, Thomas. You're trying to sell me, man. What you got to see me? Guys, I understand that, but even Alabama had down years prior to Gene Stallings and Nick Saban. Okay, so with respect to that, they had down years prior to that, but the thing is, the story remains to be seen about Jackson State yet, though. We don't know what the outcome is. The story isn't over yet. So I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying is that it's just too early to tell. But Jackson State has improved. But I don't know if they're necessarily going to be world beaters over the SWAC East, So, yeah, those, but nobody is saying that people are just going to come in and just run Rashad over Jackson State either. So, your point is duly noted. Let's see here. Comments are coming in. Keith Martin, JSU players were at home from March until January while others had fall workouts. Okay. I guess that's a conversation that's happening internally. Let me see. So Johnny Vaughn is saying JSU versus FAMU winner will win the East. That game will set the tone. So we're just gonna we just gonna ignore A&M. We're just gonna ignore Bethune-Cookman. But okay, I get it. No. Thomas, there you have it. No one knows. So, I just think that is just that's just juicy stuff. But look, we're about to go ahead and I guess call it a wrap. Kendrick, it is 6:30. I think it was a pretty good show. You guys, thank you so much for taking a few minutes to join us on this Sunday afternoon. It is beautiful outside here in Dallas. But we will hopefully try to do this again next week. And so we will certainly keep you apprised of what we do. So thank you, guys. Talk to you next time. Be safe and God bless.